Welcome to the We Are Wake Tech podcast with your host, Wake Tech President, Dr. Scott Ralls.
Hi, I'm your host, Scott Ralls. Welcome to the debut episode of We Are Wake Tech podcast, Wake Tech's official podcast. We're excited to get this podcast started, and we look forward to bringing you insightful conversations each month, highlighting the programs and the people of Wake Tech. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Ruben Arrieta Mendoza, the SGA President of Wake Tech. And I think it's really appropriate that the very first guest on the first We Are Wake Tech podcast is a student leader. Having had the great fortune to work in community colleges throughout my career, the greatest benefit to me, the thing I've appreciated the most, has been the opportunity to be inspired by community college students. I like to refer to our students as our heroes in the hallways. And our first ever guest certainly falls in the category of inspiring community college student leaders. So welcome, Ruben. So glad to have you join us here today on our We Are Wake Tech podcast.
Thank you for having me.
First, let's a little bit more about Ruben. Ruben's studying business administration, plans to transfer to a four-year university later this year. And I want him to share some things, as I mentioned, about what it's like to be a student navigating through college at this time. It's a very different time for students and for everybody right now with the pandemic. But first, Ruben, tell us a little bit about your story. Tell us the Ruben story prior to Wake Tech, where you grew up, you know, what your interests have been, and what made you choose Wake Tech.
I've lived in Knightdale my entire life, and I still continue to live in Knightdale, and I went to Knightdale High School right here, and it happens to be leaving the neighborhood, make a left, and then make a right. So it was very convenient when I was going to high school. But then high school, I was planning on going to a four-year university, and as a first-generation student, that seemed very easy. Just hearing it from other students, some of my peers in my other classrooms, just apply and then that's it. But the process was way more extensive than what I thought it would be. So I wasn't very prepared to apply to a four-year university and get the financial aid and all the other things that every student needs to submit and have for applying to a four-year university. So I didn't have a guide, and I didn't know because I don't have family that has gone to college here in the U.S. And that was very difficult, which ultimately led to me, a friend of mine in high school also that was applying to Wake Tech. And he's like, yeah, you just apply and you set up what career you want to do and your major here at Wake Tech, and then you're good to go. And it wasn't that easy. There was a lot more other stuff that you had to do in the application process as well. But that's what ultimately led to me going to Wake Tech, and also the decision to save some money. There's always that thing that you hear in high school from a lot of older people as well, people in college that and even in four-year universities that say, maybe I should have gone to a community college before I went to a four-year university. And that was probably the best advice that I would have gotten as a high schooler, and which led me to applying to Wake Tech and ultimately coming to Wake Tech immediately after high school. And starting Wake Tech, I wasn't very much the student that today, where I'm able to comfortably speak even in a meeting like that. And I was very introverted at the time that I joined Wake Tech. But when I joined Wake Tech, I was a full-time student, and I still continue to be a full-time student this semester being one of my biggest semesters, and my last semester as well, 18 credit hours, which is a lot of credit hours for one semester. But when I started at Wake Tech, I was a full-time student, and I also made a decision because in high school I didn't get involved with too many things like student government and stuff like that, or PBL here at Wake Tech as well. In high school for me, it was wrestling, and then student ambassadors and some other small clubs at the school as well. So I wanted to pursue leadership positions that'll help me as right now communicate better, have better speaking skills, and be more comfortable talking in meetings or talking with people as yourself. So I decided initially when I started Wake Tech was to look for opportunities, and that's what ultimately led me to joining PBL, Phi Beta Lambda here at Wake Tech, which is a business-oriented club. And I was very introverted at the time that I joined, and that being in that club and going to the events that we had in the first semester definitely helped me a lot. And the advisor there, Miss Marnie Rhodes, definitely helped develop my skills and get comfortable speaking to other people at meetings and stuff like that. And other professors that I had at the same time, like Mr. Jeff Myers, helped me a lot as well when I was taking a public speaking course, get comfortable, and he gave me some advice on how to be comfortable on the podium and speaking to a classroom. And that was a very scary thing for me at the time, and it still continues to be a very nerve-wracking thing at times, speaking in front of people. But ultimately, these clubs and organizations that I joined at Wake Tech helped me develop a lot of my skills and made me a lot more comfortable here at Wake Tech. And I've truly enjoyed my almost 2 years now here at Wake Tech, and I definitely do not regret choosing Wake Tech.
Well, you're a great student. It'd be hard for our podcast audience to imagine that you weren't just a naturally great public speaker, because you certainly have that gift. The last time we were together at graduation, you spoke. I had to follow you. It was like you just stepped up there, dropped the mic. Not literally dropped the mic, but just your performance dropped the mic, and then I had to follow right behind you. So you're a tough act to follow in public speaking, and I'm having to do that with you right now with the podcast, because you are certainly a great public speaker and a great student. One of the things, if I can ask you before we kind of talk a little bit about what it's like in the pandemic, something a lot of students will say to me very frequently about Wake Tech is this: they never imagined Wake Tech has all it has to offer. I mean, sometimes they'll suggest like it's almost like they underestimated Wake Tech. They didn't, their expectations were exceeded once they arrived here at Wake Tech. Has that been the case for you?
That has most definitely been the case for me. As I mentioned, in high school, everyone was applying to four-year universities like NC State or UNC or UNC Greensboro. And there was always a stigma against community colleges, like as if there weren't as many opportunities on a community college as there would be on a four-year university. And I sort of had that. Mm-hmm. I completely underestimated Wake Tech when I initially applied and joined and enrolled at Wake Tech. But seeing all the opportunities that were available for me as a first-year student here at Wake Tech definitely exceeded those expectations that I had about Wake Tech. And that definitely made me, love Wake Tech ultimately to this day, that there's tremendous amounts of opportunities for leadership or anything really that a student from any background would like to get interested in and join and develop a lot of skills like speaking or leadership skills or any type of skill that's available. And that definitely exceeded my expectations when I joined Wake Tech.
I think one thing about being a student leader at Wake Tech, I was involved in different things. I went to a university, but you often weren't a leader until 4 years in, that senior year. Wake Tech, it's a 2-year college. You gain leadership really early. You can grasp that early, and you're a great example of that, because I think that's something that you carry with you from that point forward. I think you can get it quick here at Wake Tech. Now let's jump in and talk a little bit about what it's like now, because you're our first podcast guest. You're also the first student government leader in a pandemic at Wake Tech. And for all our students, it's been, a disruption in some ways from normalcy in this whole 2021 period. How are you and your fellow students handling it during these unsettling times?
Well, Dr. Ralls, definitely the situation and the experience varies between students. For a lot of students a lot of my peers, they've been able to go through it, not with ease, but they've been comfortable with the new online environment and sort of previously having online classes and knowing what it's like. But for me and a few of my other peers as well, and students here at Wake Tech, I'm sure we love and we prefer the traditional classroom experience of being seated in a class, having the professor in front of us doing the lecture and using the whiteboard. And that rapid transition started back in late spring of 2020, where we were in our traditional classrooms, and then the next day it's our classrooms are going to be online from here now.
I think that was March 13th when we said we had to move everything online. It was an amazing lift by everyone, faculty, staff, but certainly our students as well.
Yeah, and that rapid transition, we would have never at the time expected that this pandemic would have lasted this long. So at the time, for me personally, I was okay, I'm fine with having, a month or two of online classes and then going back to the traditional classroom setting in the fall of 2020. But that didn't happen to be the case. And then for a lot of my friends, unfortunately, a lot of them took a break when the pandemic still continued, and we were still having to be in an online environment for the fall 2020, and then for now the spring 2021. And that definitely, that break was caused by sort of a fear of not having the same amount of success as in a traditional classroom setting with the online environment. And me personally, I had that same concern as well when I was applying for fall 2020. But progressively, I would say that me and a few of my peers have gotten a little bit better and more comfortable with the online environment, but it's definitely not gotten to the point where it's easy and we can go through it with ease. And for a lot of us, it's still a lot difficult as well.
Let's dig into that just a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about, some of the specific challenges? What are some of the, just examples of the challenges of making that transition? And then what are some of the things that over time helped you? I mean, you've obviously succeeded. You're moving forward. You're going to graduate as a successful student. I'm so proud of all our graduates over the past year who've had resilience and persistence, but they've also figured out ways to work as we all have in this environment. What are some of the specific challenges you faced, and what are some of the things that helped you along the way in that regard?
Well, for a lot of students, I know it was technology. For me personally, it was the print, having a printer so I can print assignments out, or having a laptop that would be up to date for having Microsoft Teams. And to this day, I still have classmates who, for some reason, we're trying to keep up with the class, but everyone has a different version of something like Excel, and it definitely makes makes classes a lot more difficult. But definitely one of the big challenges was motivation and staying on track. For me personally, in the online environment, for me, it's very hard at home with so many distractions. We have the dog, and we have family members, and we have things going on in the background. We have cars going by, but staying motivated through a very difficult time, really, and trying to focus on school while we're trying to focus on our health and our family as well, makes it very difficult to stay focused and on track. And motivation was a big thing for me. And what I try to do personally at home is have pictures of my family around that just motivate me, and have little things around my environment that just help me keep going.
That's great. Great advice. Wake Tech is unique in online education. In fact, is seen as a national leader. There are a couple of national rankings where Wake Tech's ranked the #1 community college in online education. But still, as you pointed out, it's challenging. It's challenging. But have there been certain things about the online experience at Wake Tech? I think right now about 70% throughout the year, approximately 70% of our courses have been fully online, and about 30% have been hybrid. So even in hybrid courses, even things like baking and pastry and things in healthcare and trades areas that require shops, we're using online resources. Have there been specific resources at Wake Tech, support services, that have helped in that transition, helped to make a difference, things that may have surprised you in any way?
Well, for me, even before the pandemic, if I was to give a shout out to one student support service here at Wake Tech, and I'm not sure if you would classify it as that, but the ILC. The ILC is definitely a big one that I've taken advantage of even when I started at Wake Tech before the pandemic, and here into the online environment.
And for our listeners out there, ILC stands for Individualized Learning Center. So those are our tutoring centers, and our students, really, I mean, it's an amazing resource at Wake Tech, available at all of our campus, but also very much virtual now. So sorry, Ruben, I just want to interject. So folks who didn't know what we've said by ILC, but certainly students at Wake Tech know what ILC means.
No, yeah, the ILC has definitely been a big help for me, and even in the online environment as well. For me, I primarily use it for mathematics, and I've always continued to use it for math. And every time I go into the ILC, even just before the pandemic, my experience was great. And right now with online environment, it's great as well. But I just remember being on campus and just going to the ILC the minute it would open up, because I would try to go before the class started. And there was always someone there with a smile and ready to help me with whatever problem that I had in math. And I would always leave very happy because I would know what I was doing right after that. And the ILC definitely was a big resource that's helped me get through a lot of my courses, and especially math. I don't know where I would be without the ILC in mathematics, but if there was a big shout out for a student support service, that the ILC would definitely deserve one from me, and a lot of other resources as well deserve it as well. They do very, very great work for our students here.
Well, our ILC team, I felt like, has been just one of many great examples of also making the transition virtual. They took an environment which is very much, working with students who sometimes are nervous, and you need that face to face, but trying to do the best they can and accommodating, moving virtual and making it efficient and supportive. And so I've been so proud of them and, all of our team in that regard to provide the support that our students need, particularly in a year like this. And in that regard too, let's talk a little bit about what you've been doing in our student government in a unique year. We often use a phrase at Wake Tech. We say reach and rally, and rallying really means how much we value the importance of all of us collectively rallying around each other so that we achieve the goals we want to achieve, so all of our students succeed. And student government, I think, has been just a leading example of the rally spirit here at Wake Tech. You've had multiple different fundraisers, the turkey trot, and rallying around the community too. I know even recently students were involved in over MLK for Service Day with raising money for a food bank. I saw we raised about $2,000 just last weekend for the food bank. So it's been a remarkable, you've set an example in that regard. Can you talk a little bit about what that means, why rallying is important here at Wake Tech, and how the student government has really, and all of our student organizations have stepped up and helped set that example here at Wake Tech?
So when I started in student government, I've always wanted to do something that would benefit the student body, both with learning something, especially more about the resources here at Wake Tech. That's a big thing that I wanted to focus on this year, was promoting the amazing clubs that we have and the organizations and the resources, as I just mentioned, the ILC or the Ralls Center, resources like that truly.
Tell us what the Ralls Center is real quick, just so we get that.
So the Ralls Center, I remember using it for public speaking, and that's what I used to sort of review any prompts that I had when I was taking public speaking in the, I forget which semester it was, but I used it to review and also to practice as well, aside from being at home and practicing with the dog. And so the Ralls Center was definitely a good resource to use when taking a course like public speaking.
One of the things, students are having to make a lot of sacrifices right now in their own education to put food on the table. And as you mentioned earlier, some are choosing that this is too challenging a time. And we were seeing that particularly with community college students who a lot of times work, have family responsibilities, job responsibilities. And so many are making that choice that, well, maybe now's not the time for me. But others like you have found, there are resources here, there are supports. What advice would you give to students right now who are, struggling with those challenges, struggling with that decision?
Well, Dr. Ralls, these students, and a lot of them are in my classes and in my previous classes as well, these students are a very great example of students that we have here at Wake Tech, the students that Wake Tech produces, and the students that are at Wake Tech studying extremely hard to pursue a career of their dreams. And personally, because I haven't been in a situation like that, I don't think I can offer advice to these students, but what I can give is my utmost respect to these students that work extremely hard to take care of their family, and also to at the same time pursue a career of their dreams here at Wake Tech. And so what I can give is my utmost respect and some words of encouragement, which is that they're a very great and beautiful example for a lot of students here at Wake Tech of dedication and perseverance here. And they're also being great examples to the children that they're taking care of at home too. So these students are extremely a very great example of perseverance and dedication to pursuing a career at the same time as hard work as well, of taking care of their family and taking care of everything in their household.
Well, Ruben, I think you just now beautifully articulated what I hope to mean when I say heroes in the hallways, because our students at Wake Tech, much of what they do I see as being very heroic, and being a college student for many of our Wake Tech students is not the only thing they do. It's an additional thing that they're doing to further their lives, further their family opportunities, further our community. And so they truly are heroes for us here. And you're a hero for us as well, Ruben. You've been a great leader in a very difficult time. We're so fortunate to have had you in this role as our student body president in this most unique year at Wake Tech. And so I want to thank you for being who you are and being a part of Wake Tech and for being a student leader and joining us for this first episode of the We Are Wake Tech podcast. I'm your host, Scott Ralls. We'll see you back here next month for our next episode, where we will look forward to sharing more with you about our new WakeWorks apprenticeship programs and our WakeWorks Propel programs, which provide some very unique opportunities for folks in our community now who are looking for those quick and long-term pathways, that starting point in making career transitions and gaining employment opportunities. And in the meantime, you can connect with me on Twitter at WakeTechPrez. You can also find our podcast at podcast.waketech.edu or subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube to have the latest podcast delivered right to your phone. So thank you all and be well, and we'll see you soon.
Hi, I'm Laurie Clowers, and here's your Wake Tech News Update. Wake Tech's spring semester started January 7th, with most classes beginning online as a result of the holiday spike in coronavirus cases. Hybrid classes started adding on-campus instruction on January 19th. Safety guidelines and protocols are strictly enforced on campus, including mandatory masks and social distancing in classrooms, hallways, and all public spaces. The buildings are cleaned at regular intervals throughout the day and at night. The spring semester welcomed the first students in Wake Tech's new Medical Sonography Program. The program prepares students for this high-demand field, training them on the use of high-frequency sound waves to produce images of internal organs and tissues. We are pleased to announce that David Favre has joined Wake Tech as Dean of Transportation Technologies. He'll oversee the college's programs in automotive systems, collision repair, heavy equipment, and agricultural systems technology. He'll also be the director of the new Hendrick Center for Automotive Excellence. That's due to open later this year on the Scott Northern Wake campus. On the RTP campus, the second building there is taking shape. This new facility will focus on our new biotechnology program and will be a site for short-term training for biotech companies. It'll also become the home of a new collaborative partnership with Wake County Public Schools. More on that to come. The first WakeWorks students have started in their programs. WakeWorks Propel offers scholarships for short-term training programs, and WakeWorks Apprenticeship offers opportunities to learn on the job while earning a paycheck. For more information, visit wakeworks.waketech.edu. A huge note of gratitude to Lane & Associates Family Dentistry, which has made a major commitment to Wake Tech's dental assisting program. The funds will support students with scholarships and emergency aid to help them be successful in the program. The funds will also go toward equipment for the facility, which will be named the Lane & Associates Family Dentistry Dental Assisting Clinic. Lane has been a valuable clinical training site for our students, and we thank them. And big news for Wake Tech Athletics. It has a new logo that marks a resurgence of Wake Tech sports for 2021 and beyond. The new Eagle logo is bold and modern and more closely aligns with the college's brand. Each Wake Tech sports team now has its own special design. Check it out on waketechsports.com. And that's not the only news for Wake Tech Athletics. The college is launching esports this spring. That means Wake Tech has become one of few, if any, institutions in the country where gaming is a competitive sport and game development is an academic degree. And finally, just in time for Valentine's Day, a big congratulations to Jacob Keller and Meredith Roach. Right before the holidays, the couple got engaged in the classroom where they met a couple of years ago at the Scott Northern Wake campus. An October wedding is planned, and we wish them both a lifetime of happiness. There's still time to enroll in an accelerated 8-week course this spring. Visit springahead.waketech.edu. And that's our news update.
Hi, I'm Jim Freeman. I'm the Program Director for the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Program at Wake Tech. And we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do to help save energy and save you some money this winter with your heating and air conditioning, especially your heating costs this winter. Some things that homeowners can do to allow their home to be comfortable and save them some money. Most homeowners, you're going to either have a gas heat system or you're going to have a heat pump system. This is a gas heat system. Gas heat, you can save money a little bit different than you can with a heat pump. One of the things you can do with gas heat is you can get a setback thermostat. I would recommend having it installed by a professional, but a thermostat that allows you to program it so in times when you're not active in the house, the temperature in the house can be reduced. It'll save you on your energy cost, and then the thermostats, they're especially some of the smart technology we have, they can kick on and warm the home back up. Very efficient with gas heat. Another thing, whether it's gas heat or heat pump, the number one thing a homeowner should do is they should keep their air filter, their return air filter replaced often. You got to be able to keep that air flowing across that piece of equipment. Dirty filters cause very inefficient units, so the homeowner should keep that air filter replaced. I'm not going to say every month, it depends on the home, but check it often and replace it often. We talked about heat pumps or gas heat. You also have, some homes have package units. Some homes have what would be known as a split system. Either way, the maintenance for the homeowner is going to be pretty much the same. You need to keep your filters replaced like we talked about. The heat pump is a little different than the gas heat, where we really don't like to turn our heat pump thermostats down a lot. If you make too much of an adjustment, when it goes to warm the house back up, you'll bring on electric strip heat. So my advice for heat pumps is set that thermostat on an area where you're going to be comfortable and leave it alone, let it stay there. I would also recommend that both, whether it's a heat pump or a gas furnace, you have a professional come out before the season and check it, make sure it's ready for the winter operation. If they can find little things that need to be repaired, take care of them. Your unit will run more efficient for your winter season.
Thank you for listening to the We Are Wake Tech podcast. Join us next month for more insightful conversations about the programs and people of Wake Tech and how the college changes lives every day. Be sure to subscribe to your favorite podcast app to have each episode delivered right to your computer or mobile device. For more, find us at podcast.waketech.edu. To learn more about Wake Tech's exceptional educational opportunities, visit waketech.edu.